There is a moment that happens to millions of retirees, and almost nobody talks about it. You spent 30, maybe 40 years working. You saved, you planned, you hit your number, you retired. And then somewhere around month 3 or month 6, a quiet, unsettling feeling shows up. Not because you ran out of money, not because something went wrong, but because you have no idea how much you're actually allowed to spend. You sit on this pile of money you spent your whole life building, and you're afraid to touch it. You're eating the same meals, driving the same car, skipping the vacation, not because you can't afford it, but because you don't know if you can. And that fear, that is the retirement trap. And today, we are going to talk about how to get out of it. Hey everyone, welcome back to Life Advice. I'm your name, and today we are going deep on one of the most misunderstood parts of retirement. Not the saving part, not the investing part, but the spending part. Because here's what the data actually shows. Most retirees underspend by a significant margin, and that underspending is quietly costing them the retirement they actually worked for. Let's start with the data, because this is not just a feeling. Research from firms like BlackRock and the Employee Benefit Research Institute consistently shows that a large percentage of retirees spend less in retirement than they did while they were working, often far less than they could comfortably afford to. Now, on the surface, you might think, okay, that's fine, that's responsible. But when you dig deeper, researchers found that this underspending isn't driven by financial necessity. It's driven by fear. Fear of running out, fear of a medical emergency, fear of the unknown. And that fear is keeping people from actually living their retirement. Here's the thing that makes this so painful. The average American spends roughly 30 to 40 years accumulating wealth, saving, investing, compounding, sacrificing, and then they arrive at retirement. The finish line they were running toward their entire adult lives, and they freeze. They become so focused on protecting what they built that they forget why they built it in the first place. So today, we are going to address 3 things. Number 1, why retirees underspend and where that fear actually comes from. Number 2, what the data says about how much you can actually afford to spend. And number 3, a practical framework for turning your savings into real, guilt-free income that lasts. Because retirement was never supposed to be about hoarding. It was supposed to be about living. To understand the spending problem, we have to understand where the fear comes from. And there are really 3 main sources. Source number 1, the 4% rule misunderstanding. You have probably heard of the 4% rule. The idea that you can withdraw 4% of your portfolio every year and your money will last 30 years. But here's what most people don't know. The 4% rule was not designed as an ideal spending target. It was designed as a worst-case survival floor. It was built to make sure that even in the absolute worst market conditions in modern history, think the Great Depression, think stagflation in the 1970s, your portfolio would still survive. It is the financial equivalent of the emergency exit. It is not your living room. So when retirees hear 4%, many of them treat it as a ceiling. They think, I must never spend more than this. But research from financial planning organizations like Morningstar and T. Rowe Price shows that in the majority of historical scenarios, retirees who stuck to 4% ended up leaving behind enormous amounts of unspent wealth. In many cases, their portfolios were actually larger at the end of 30 years than when they started, which means they could have spent significantly more and still never run out of money. The 4% rule is a floor, not a ceiling. There is a very big difference. Source number 2, sequence of returns anxiety. Sequence of returns risk is real. If you retire right before a major market downturn, like 2000 or 2008, and you're pulling money out of a falling portfolio in those early years, it can do lasting damage to your retirement. This is a legitimate concern, and it is also one of the most misapplied fears in retirement planning. Because here is what happens. People hear about sequence of returns risk and they think the answer is to spend as little as possible. But that is not actually the solution. The solution is a smart withdrawal structure, and we are going to get into that. Blanket underspending does not protect you from sequence of returns risk in any meaningful way. It just steals years of your life. Source number 3, the legacy guilt trap. This one is more psychological. A lot of retirees grew up in households where saving was survival, where spending felt irresponsible, where leaving something behind for your children or grandchildren felt like the most important financial goal of all. And that mindset does not disappear just because you retire. But here's a question worth sitting with. Is your plan to fund your children's inheritance or to fund your own life? Because those are 2 very different retirement strategies. And one of them is yours to live. Okay, so now let's look at what the data actually says about sustainable retirement spending, because the numbers here might genuinely surprise you. Let's start with something called the retirement spending smile. For years, financial planners assumed that retirees would spend at a steady rate throughout retirement. Same expenses every year, adjusted for inflation. But when researchers actually studied how retirees spend in real life, they found something very different. Spending actually follows a smile-shaped curve. Early in retirement, let's say ages 62 to 72, people tend to spend the most. They're healthy, they're active, they're traveling, spending time with family, pursuing hobbies, doing all the things they work their entire lives to do. Then spending naturally dips in the middle years. Health is still okay, but energy slows down. Travel gets less frequent. Lifestyle naturally becomes simpler. Then in the later years, spending can spike again, but primarily due to healthcare and long-term care costs. What this means is that your retirement is not one long, flat spending line. It is 3 distinct phases. And the window where you are truly able to enjoy discretionary spending, the go-go years, as planners call them, is actually quite short. Researchers estimate it at roughly 10 to 15 years for most retirees. That changes the math completely. Because if you only have a 10 to 15-year window where you are physically and mentally able to live life at full speed, every year you spend that window in fear or underspending is a year you cannot get back. Now let's talk about what sustainable spending actually looks like by portfolio size, because this is where the data gets practical. According to research across multiple firms, Fidelity, Vanguard, and Charles Schwab, here is a simplified framework. For a $500,000 portfolio, a withdrawal rate between 4 and 5% gives you $20,000 to $25,000 per year from your portfolio alone. For a $1 million portfolio at the same 4 to 5%, that is $40,000 to $50,000 per year. And for a $1.5 million portfolio, you are looking at $60,000 to $75,000 per year. These are before Social Security, before any pension, before any part-time income. Now here is what is important. Those ranges, 4 to 5%, are not reckless. They are not irresponsible. They are based on decades of historical market data, and they account for significant market downturns. The idea that only 3% is safe and anything above that is gambling is simply not supported by the evidence. In fact, a 2024 Morningstar study revised its recommended starting withdrawal rate upward, reflecting updated long-term market expectations. The data continues to show that most retirees can afford to spend more than they currently do. And this brings us to the most important reframe of this entire video. The goal of retirement income planning is not to make your money last as long as possible at the lowest possible spending rate. The goal is to create a sustainable income plan that funds the life you actually want to live, for as long as you live. So how do you actually do this? How do you take a portfolio and turn it into guilt-free monthly income without lying awake at night wondering if you'll run out? The answer that consistently comes up across research from firms like Dimensional Fund Advisors, Vanguard, and T. Rowe Price is a strategy commonly known as the bucket approach. And here is how it works in plain language. Bucket 1, your safety net. Time horizon, 1 to 2 years. This bucket holds cash and cash equivalents. Think high-yield savings accounts, money market funds, short-term CDs. Somewhere between 1 and 2 years of your annual living expenses. This is the money you live on today. It does not fluctuate with the market. It does not give you anxiety. It is stable, accessible, and it gives you one thing above everything else: time. Time to let your investments recover if the market drops. Because if the market falls 30% in year 1 of your retirement, but your living expenses for the next 18 months are sitting safely in cash, you do not have to sell anything. You wait. You let it recover. This bucket is what breaks the sequence of returns trap. Bucket 2, your income engine. Time horizon, 3 to 10 years. This bucket is designed to generate reliable, relatively stable income over the medium term. This is where you hold a mix of bonds, dividend-paying stocks, and balanced funds. Not highly aggressive, not completely conservative. Its job is to refill bucket 1 as you spend it down. When the cash bucket gets low, bucket 2 is there to replenish it. And because it has a longer time horizon, it can absorb modest market swings without panic. Bucket 3, your long-term growth engine. Time horizon, 10 years and beyond. This is your stock-heavy, growth-oriented bucket. Index funds, equity ETFs, assets that will be volatile in the short term, but historically deliver strong returns over a decade or more. You are not touching this money for at least 10 years, which means short-term market drops are almost irrelevant here. This bucket is what protects you against the one risk that almost nobody talks about enough: inflation. Because over a 25 or 30-year retirement, inflation will quietly eat your purchasing power alive if your money is not growing to keep up with it. Now, here is why the bucket strategy is so powerful psychologically, not just mathematically. When the market drops, and it will drop, you do not have a portfolio. You have three buckets, and only one of them is moving. Bucket one is still full. Your bills are paid, your lifestyle is intact. The volatility in bucket three feels distant and manageable because it is not your immediate income. It is your future growth. This separation of purpose from money is one of the most underrated tools in retirement planning. And research consistently shows that retirees who use a clear income structure like this not only make better financial decisions, they report significantly higher satisfaction with their retirement overall. Now we need to talk about something that has a massive impact on how much you need to pull from your portfolio every month, and that is Social Security. Here's the fundamental principle. Social Security is a guaranteed, inflation-adjusted income stream that lasts for the rest of your life. That makes it one of the most valuable financial assets a retiree can have. And most people chronically undervalue it. Every year you delay claiming Social Security beyond your full retirement age, up to age 70, your benefit increases by approximately 8%. Let me say that again. 8%. Guaranteed. Per year. After inflation adjustment. There is almost no investment in the world that will reliably give you an 8% guaranteed return. Not bonds, not annuities, not CDs. The decision of when to claim Social Security is, for most retirees, the single highest impact financial decision of their retirement years. Yet research from the Nationwide Retirement Institute found that the overwhelming majority of Americans claim Social Security before they maximize their benefit. Many claim at 62, as early as possible, leaving tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table over a long retirement. Now, delaying is not right for everyone. Your health matters. Your spouse's benefit matters. Your other income sources matter. But the point is this. A higher Social Security benefit is a higher income floor. And a higher income floor means less pressure on your portfolio. Less pressure on your portfolio means you can spend more freely without anxiety, because a larger portion of your essential expenses is covered by income that will never run out. Think of Social Security as the anchor of your retirement income plan. The larger the anchor, the more secure your ship. Let's come back to where we started, because everything we have covered today, the bucket strategy, the spending smile, the withdrawal rate data, Social Security optimization, all of it points to the same conclusion. Most retirees can spend more than they currently do, but data alone does not solve the fear, because this is not purely a math problem. It is an identity problem. For most people, saving was not just a financial habit. It was a core part of who they were. It was how they defined responsibility, security, and self-worth. And when you retire and suddenly you are supposed to be spending that money, it feels wrong. It feels unsafe. It feels like you are doing something you are not supposed to do. So here's the permission structure that actually helps. First, separate needs from wants from wishes. Your needs are your essential fixed expenses. Housing, food, healthcare, transportation. Your wants are the lifestyle choices that bring regular joy. Dining out, hobbies, visiting family. Your wishes are the big bucket list items, the trip to Europe, the vacation home, the gift to your grandchildren. Once you know what each of these costs per month, you can structure your income to cover each category intentionally. This is not just budgeting. This is designing your life. Second, create what planners call a permission slip budget. This is a documented plan that says, based on my income, my portfolio, my expected lifespan, and historical data, I am permitted to spend this amount per month, including on things that bring me joy. Having this written down, reviewed by a financial planner, and anchored to real data is one of the most powerful tools for overcoming retirement spending anxiety. Third, give yourself a review date. One of the biggest fears retirees have is that spending today will cause problems 20 years from now. So rather than spending as little as possible and hoping for the best, schedule an annual retirement review. Every year, look at your portfolio value, your spending rate, your health, and your income. Adjust if you need to, but also give yourself permission to enjoy what the year brings, knowing that next year you will check in again. This approach, structured, flexible, and evidence-based, is how retirees move from surviving retirement to actually living it. Here is the bottom line that I want you to take away from this video today. You did not spend 30 or 40 years building wealth so you could sit on it and be afraid of it. You built it so it could work for you, so it could fund a life that feels full, meaningful, and free. And the data from the world's leading retirement research firms says you can do exactly that with the right structure in place. The retirement trap is real, the fear is real, but it is not insurmountable. With a clear spending framework, a smart income structure, and an honest conversation with yourself about what you actually want your retirement to look like, you can escape the trap. You can spend with confidence. You can live without guilt. Because retirement is not the end of your financial story. It is the chapter you saved up your entire life to write, and you deserve to write it boldly. If this video gave you something to think about, I would love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me, are you more of an overspender or an underspender in retirement? What is the number one thing holding you back from spending more freely? Let's have that conversation. And if you found this helpful, please give the video a like and consider sharing it with someone you know who is retired or getting close to retirement. I post new videos every single week, so if you are not subscribed yet, now is a great time to hit that button. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.